Chapter 43, Coffee in 20 Years. In an odd way, there was this great sigh of relief in my spirit. My wife and I had spent tens of thousands of hours to keep ministry going and rebuild a broken church. There were also tens of thousands of volunteer hours from other key people who had committed with us to do this journey for the last 5 years. All our work had failed to produce a sustainable church. It had taken 2 to 3 times the effort while in poverty culture environment to produce less than half the harvest that I had experienced in my previous suburban ministry roles. Honestly, I was internally breathing a sigh of relief that I could just lead this church through a sale and then let it all go and move on to something else. The weight was about to fall off my shoulders if I wanted it, and I certainly did want it. I was having coffee with my friends Bill, the church treasurer, and Jim, our board chairman. We discussed what we ought to do next and what we wanted to do next. In our denomination, as long as our local church exists, we own the assets and can decide how to use them as a church body. If we ever fold or close as a church, then all the assets revert to the denomination. I was sorely tempted to just let the sale go through, close the church down, hand the big fat check over to the denomination, and move on. It's up to you, Jim said. It's whether you have it in you to press on or not. If you say no, it's no. As we sat there talking, we laughingly joked about our little congregation, which by then had become 30 members, 20 street addicts, and 4 dogs. What do we do with them now? What was our ministry dream? How many times in your life is Jesus going to put you in a position where he hands you over $1 million of his money and in effect says, "Here, now go build my kingdom"? I've been around a long time, and I never knew anyone who had had that happen. Jim, Bill, and I began to talk about the pros and cons of shutting it down or trying to do something new. 20 years from now, we will be sitting on a front porch as old geezers, reminiscing about life. Do you want to be telling a story about the time Jesus offered you $1 million to go build his kingdom and you said, "No thanks"? Or do you want to tell about the time you tried and maybe failed? I asked. Jim laughed and said, "Well, when you put it that way, I'd regret not having even tried." "Me too," Bill answered. "I think that will be a much bigger sorrow than if we try but fail." Our choice to try and press on was made. But what do we press on to do? Building another auditorium-style church in the suburbs with a large playground and nifty latte bar in the lobby didn't fit us. More than a decade before, I had lived in San Francisco Bay Area. I used to get away down to Carmel, Monterey, or Santa Cruz for times of personal reflection and devotion. During one of my getaways, I headed to Santa Cruz for a 2-day personal retreat. I was in a difficult church plant situation at the time. There was a lot of emotional and social struggle concerning the maintenance of my sanity. Highway 17 in the Santa Cruz Mountains winds and wraps, twists and turns like a fast-flowing river of black asphalt as it connects the South Bay to the pleasant resort towns on the mid-California coast. One of the first sights a person sees when dropping down out of the mountains coming into Santa Cruz, long before seeing the beach, is a towering white-spired church high on a hill to the right of the highway. It's perched on a ridge against a backdrop of green mountain forests, like a pearl in a setting of emerald. Holy Cross Catholic Church. I felt the Lord nudge me to go there one time, so I took an exit and climbed through the city streets until emerging onto the plaza in front of the Holy Cross and parked. Getting out of my car with my journal, I wandered around the church and the plaza while simply trying to pray and listen. A tree-lined park sits directly in front of the church with more buildings and businesses surrounding it. The church dominates the view at the north end of this delightful little plaza. I sat on a bench and I asked God why I was there. "What do you notice?" I sensed him asking me. Looking around, I was struck by the city design. The church site was over 100 years old. The cathedral rests on the site of one of the 21 original missions established in California in the 1700s. The city takes its name from the site, City of the Holy Cross, Santa Cruz. I couldn't help but be struck by the city leader's decision to help build their park in front of the church at some point in the bygone past. It's a common theme in the United States. Churches towering over the green park in the center of the original town. There was a time when my church was the center of society, I heard the Lord say in my heart. The park was naturally built here because this is where people met and worshiped. Here they prayed and fell in love and married. Here they responded to community emergencies. Here they held meetings to help define how the society would get along. Here they grieved and comforted each other. Here they played and laughed and built community. Here was the most natural place in a city to build a park, simply because the church was here. This was the center of society. I drank in the moment and I thought of how far we have drifted in the last 100 years. Will it ever be that way again, Lord? Can the church ever again be the center of a community in America? I asked. Yes, but it won't look like it did in the past, and it won't look like it does now. You can't put new wine in an old wineskin. I spent the next few days meditating on those thoughts. Now, over a decade later, I was again faced with that memory. I was wondering how to take Jesus' money and try to build a new wineskin. In the weeks that followed that coffee time with Jim and Bill, our leaders began to discuss what we would do if we had the chance to throw off all previous expectations and assumptions and build a ministry for both the middle class and poverty culture. What would it look like if we retooled the design of the space so that it worked all week long rather than waiting around to execute a good event on Sunday morning, hoping to draw a crowd to pay for it all? From my church planning days, I knew a healthy church needs a minimum of 7,000 square feet to accommodate all of its Sunday service needs, classrooms, and offices. Any less, and would always struggle to collect a large enough group to be self-sustaining. The question we faced was, what else could the 7,000 square feet do the other 6 days of the week? By then, I had been serving for some time on the elected leadership team of the Spokane Homeless Coalition. I knew numerous Spokane ministries and nonprofits were doing an outstanding job of feeding the hungry, housing the homeless, and getting medical and mental health treatment to the poverty-stricken in our area. I also knew the system had a gap. Once someone cleared a drug and alcohol treatment program, got food stamps, and received housing help by living in some tiny downtown slum apartment, the next step up turned out to be too big of a leap. People in the system were unable to pull up to the next level because their current resume said 4 years an addict, 2 years in prison, 3 years living on the street. In a town where 100 applications are filled out just to flip burgers, it was too hard to get meaningful employment without skills and a past track record like that. Rather than feed 175 people each week, hoping to really change the lives of 10 to 15 of them, we thought that we might move to the other end of the funnel and put more energy into the few and let Union Gospel Mission, Catholic Charities, and others handle the large meal programs. We thought that our best route would be to create a job training program with our church, square footage, but still allow us to do services on Sunday and other times. Sports fields, coffee shops, and pubs are the social hubs our society gathers around today. After kicking around what we would do with 7,000 square feet, we decided to build an open-to-the-public job training cafe that mentored people coming out of poverty culture. We would open it all week long and then close it on Sundays to do church in the same space. We planned on taking former inmates, addicts, or street people and give them jobs for training in the hard skills of work knowledge and the soft skills of people interaction. We knew that many people growing up in poverty culture need to learn all the unspoken middle-class rules before they will ever fit in or find success. We dreamed of building a cafe with enough meeting space that we could simultaneously hold Bible studies, youth gatherings, or recovery ministries, while the neighborhood met to commune at their favorite local coffee shop. I wanted to hold regular Wednesday night wisdom talks at our coffee shop. I planned to use my connections and partnerships to create discussion nights where I would interview leaders and frontline practitioners who are doing outstanding work among the poor and the marginalized. But they don't have a platform to communicate to the general public all the work entails. I knew leaders running successful ministries with homeless women and kids. or men who had been incarcerated and were trying to rebuild their lives. Still others did outstanding work with runaway teens and sex-trafficked rescue. I thought it would be fantastic to have a church space where the whole city could come and listen and learn about the tremendous government programs and nonprofits that were literally changing the social structure of society with their efforts. Maybe with a little work, we could make Wednesday Night Wisdom Talks a local cable access show. We had 4 months to inspire our remaining church members with this vision before the sale was completed.